This Saturday marks the 10-year anniversary of the massive earthquake that was the financial crisis. September 15th, 2008, Lehman Brothers filed for bankruptcy. There was nowhere for that bank to turn, smashing the theorem too big to fail. Well, fast forward 10 years later, the U.S. economy is robust, unemployment is low, and the stock market is hitting record after record. So what could go wrong? Well, we had to find out what went wrong to try and see what can go wrong. In a Fox Business exclusive, we've got the man who pored over the books and the details of the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy and authored the very report that helped set in motion the financial regulations we have today. Anton Valukas, thank you for joining us, sir.
Thank you for having me, Liz.
So you were brought in as an attorney who has represented companies and done a whole bunch of forensic accounting in the past, and you started poring over what happened. 10 years later, as you look at it from 30,000 feet, give us, in the language that everybody can understand, what the heck happened to Lehman Brothers?
It actually is relatively simple when you boil it down. The investigation went through millions of documents, hundreds of interviews of top executives around the world, top executives within the government, the Secretary of Treasury, et cetera. And what it boils down to, there were a series of decisions made by Lehman executives back in 2006 and 2007, which they believed would bring incredible profits to the company. They were not indulging in subprime mortgages. In fact, they were exiting that area, but they were moving into commercial real estate with the belief that the 11th Amendment would hold, which is that the value of good real estate would never decline. A belief that Mr. Bernanke also held in many of his speeches. And what happened was they stayed with that point of view, notwithstanding the fact that the market turned completely against them. And the most amazing part of that whole scenario was the fact that the federal government knew everything that Lehman was doing, its risk exceedances, the fact that they did not have a liquidity pool which could support the type of work that they were doing, and they sat by and did nothing. Mm-hmm. So the disaster was one where, at the end of the day, 10 years ago, almost to the day, tomorrow will be the day, they had 6 hours to plan for a bankruptcy, and into bankruptcy they went. That's what it was, decision.
When I hear this, and we covered it, we were living and breathing it here at Fox Business, I feel like you're being really generous to Lehman, in fact, overly generous. And I say that because in January of 2008, they came out and said, we've got record revenues of $60 billion. We've got record earnings of $4 billion. We've got a market cap of $30 billion. Everything's awesome. And then as the months went by, they started, forget making decisions, they actually, I don't know, they made actual balance sheet manipulation moves, like this Repo 105, which we don't even have to get into, but it was a pretty tricky move that was never disclosed. And to me, that begins to look like real nefarious behavior.
Well, I'm not going to disagree with you. In fact, I do agree with you, because when we found on Repo 105, we found, as they describe in their own email traffic, it was simply a drug they were on, a charade. The language used by the president was simply, this is some way that we can cover the balance sheet. So they made themselves look infinitely better than they actually were. But that's not the reason they failed. That's what they did to try and buy time, hoping that the market would turn in their direction.
But they lied about their liquidity pool, too. I mean, liquidity to me means cash that you can readily accept and you can readily grab when there's an emergency. They said they had this massive pool of billions when, in essence, it was tiny because they couldn't convert it in the form that it was in. So there was a lot of lying going on. And to this day, people wonder, what was the most jaw-dropping discovery that you found? Because we just articulated a couple of them.
Well, the most amazing thing to me was the fact that as they went along, all of that information was available to the government. You asked the question, why were there no prosecutions? Why were there no civil suits brought by the government?
Right.
And the answer might be in part by virtue of the fact that the government knew about most of these things. The government had access to all of their documents. They were on premises. They knew about risk exceedances. They knew about the issues with the liquidity pool, and they did nothing about that. So when you say, who were the victims in the government, you say, and Lehman can say, well, the government knew these things. We made these things available to them. They would be telling the truth. The government did know, and the government did nothing.
Lehman tried to stay in good standing with the ratings agencies, and part of that probably propelled the lying, et cetera. But You know, as you look at what happened in the past, what now? Is Dodd-Frank in the original form and what it looks like now enough to protect us from the next crisis, which may be sparked by nothing similar to Lehman Brothers?
The big question here is Dodd-Frank was a framework for but the real meat of Dodd-Frank had to be in the regulation, and there were significant regulations that were passed that should prevent a precipitous bankruptcy like Lehman was. I mean, Lehman had 6 hours of bankruptcy planning. That's almost unheard of. It is unheard of. Mm-hmm. But the real issue now is, and the same issue that existed then, is that the government did not understand what it was regulating to some substantial extent. And the question is, in this global, interrelated, complex, derivative-driven economy, does the government understand where the areas of vulnerability are? And that's the question. And the answer, I will tell you what the former chairman of the chairperson of the SEC told us, which was simply that her lawyers, who were looking at the same materials that Lehman was looking at, simply did not understand what they were seeing. Oh, yeah. They just didn't know and understand what they were looking at. And the question is, does the government understand what's going on now? That's the question.
Let's hope they do, but I don't think there's an answer right now. Anton, thank you. Thank you for coming on.
You're welcome.
Anton Valukas wrote the report on how and why Lehman failed.